A Mighty Wind, The Annals of History, by Lord Blackwater.
Chapter 10. Steep my teabag an extra minute, please. Vigella lay in a bed as a pair of large testicles hit her in the eyes. It felt like being hit in the face with two apples stuffed into a sack. Such was the size and girth of this man's balls. It can be hard to remember anything when you're getting balls to the face, and Vigella for the life of her couldn't recall this Rashimi's name. All she could remember was that they were next up in the decision tree, meaning they had the next biggest dick and vag. Vigella's goal was simple. If the Rashimi wanted to make decisions based on sexual organ size instead of royal bloodline, then she would eliminate those who had considerable size. In order to do this, Vigella had met with a witch on the outskirts of Innswood. The witch had given her a spell that would shrink any penis or vagina as long as she said the right words and farted on the area she was trying to shrink. It all seemed simple enough at the time, but she learned that she had to do some weird shit in order to get close enough to make those things happen. Just last week, she had allowed someone to light her pubes on fire before putting it out with jizz. All this while flapping his arms like wings and yelling, "You don't have enough badges to train me!" Vigella had to put her pride aside in a lot of what she'd been asked to do lately, but she was convinced it was worth it. Of course, Corfart didn't know about this plan. He knew she was sleeping around, but in Rashimi culture that was typical. You don't have an orgy pile without being sexually open as a culture. What he did not know about was all the wiener and vagina shrinking, or that Vigella's plan was to try and sabotage the Rashimi way of governing. Vigella began softly chanting as the Rashimi continued to dangle his testicles.
Nin o Catheglir, Lasto Bether, Rimonin Brunnen, Don in Ular,
Splitdoosh! Vigella ripped one on his balls and shaft. The man began screaming instantly at all the pain, but it only intensified as he looked down to see his member shrinking.
"You yogurt guzzling witch! What have you done to me?"
he cried. Vigella smiled. She wasn't entirely sure the incantation would work. She felt a rare sense of optimism and thought this would perhaps be her route back into power. Vigella sat just outside of Longville, feeling defeated yet again. She had just finished going ass to mouth with a Rashimi who ended up with a tiny head covered in fart dust. As she thought about this latest encounter, she toyed with the necklace of tiny wieners that hung around her neck. She had amassed almost 40 by now, but at some point she had lost count. And what was it all for? She realized about halfway through that she had to kill those whom she had used the incantation on. Most lost their mind when they saw their genitalia shrink, and she feared being exposed. In addition to that, Vigella realized that no matter how much genitalia she shrunk, the system would continue. Someone would still have the biggest or fattest, even if they were all small. She could attempt to shrink everyone until just she and Corfart were left, but that seemed too risky. For now, she killed for the enjoyment of it, because this wasn't getting her to her end goal. And besides, the killing gave her a sense of power she hadn't been able to obtain before. It wasn't what she wanted, but for now, it would suffice. Vigella sighed. It would have to end at some point, though. The village was already starting to get a little suspicious of the killings. But what would be her next plan?